So thanks, Ole. Actually, I think that was a great intro and an overview of the AI topics, especially. And I want to put some spotlight on, or deep dives to these AI topics. And that's not the start. Yeah. And start with non-AI topics, looking at some things that we did in the last couple of months since the last major, which I think are relevant to mention as well next to the AI revolution topics. Starting with that guy here. You know that, right? So who knows what I mean here? So it's the Shai-Hulud attacks, supply chain attacks. And we were affected by that as well. By the way, we were not the originally hacked one. We were just a victim of another one that we reused. So what does it mean? Better don't reuse any other software, right? And actually, this is the story of this slide. You may know that in CAP we always looked very critically at the number of dependencies from the very beginning. We were quite small, and we recently exchanged things like better SQLite, third-party driver, by the Node native implementation. Also a good idea, always go to the most native implementations of something, to the most trusted vendors. Node org itself is trusted. Express is also trusted. But then it starts getting difficult. Axios, for example, was affected. A big time story that Axios was killed. And actually, this is what we also removed any traces of Axios and used the native fetch API, which is even a web standard running in the browsers in JavaScript as well as in Node server. So we did this, and the effect is exactly that attack surface that is shaded in red here reduced to the green part. What stayed constant is the Express dependencies, all the dependencies that come with Express, and these make up 69 out of the 71 total dependencies of third-party packages we have in a classical Node.js dev setup. Of course, also the installed base goes down, maybe meantime forgotten in the age of AI, where all of you all the time download SDKs, MCP SDKs, which are 100 megabyte in size, by the way, only the SDK for MCP only. In the past, something like code start times and scalability was important when you had a cluster and you want to scale to 0 and you want to scale up to 100 cluster nodes again. Code start times matters. CAP is designed and tuned for code start times as well. Yeah, that goes basically what I showed also at last reCAP, the heavy stock chicken universe. Node modules kills them all, so right? And I always kept telling these things in the beginning and just wanted to share my pain with you on that. The title is not by me. A great guy said this. There are these timeless principles and they don't go away. And things like minimize your dependency, otherwise you're killed. Long-term support matters when you build a product, not just for fun, right? Less is more, DJ said this. Also less code. Quality, stability, and whenever I started talking about these things, I was confronted with, well, we are living in modern times, using as much open source software as possible is a good sign of software development, like hundreds dependencies, 1,000 dependencies. It's not. But whenever I tried to emphasize these things, I always felt like these guys, you know. Another guy, also a bit older, said this thing, and that is basically the idea of when we promote the reasons why we do CAP, and I chose to put that in the beginning. 10 years before now, these were the arguments we gave why something like CAP would be important. And proven best practices is exactly what Mr. Newton basically phrased in his sentence. Standing off the shoulders of authors means, instead of you reinventing everything or asking your AI agent to do it for you, by the way, AI doesn't invent anything, I never saw it at least, adopt the best practices that your peers have already detected and battle tested for you. My best example within SAP are always the AFC guys, which I mentioned. Where are they? Here they are. Visit these guys. A lot of things in CAP are actually developed by them in an application, in a real application, and thereby battle tested. So if you adopt these same things, you're pretty sure it works. It's a proven best practice. You stand on the shoulders of these guys, and if you do that vice versa, that helps. Community idea instead of heroes. Yeah, I don't go through all of them. It's just for us to remember as a snapshot. Part of the best practices are what DJ and others called the axioms. These are the core principles of CAP. Declarative with CDS and the aspect-oriented thing, querying instead of imperative loops in loops in loops, bad idea. Don't do object relational map, as I always say. The service-centric model paid off. Meanwhile, it gave us a lot of things that we just connect like Lego blocks and it just works. It's this principle of services. And the other one is events and async operation. We will see traces of that or references to that later on. Intrinsic extensibility is a complex term, maybe. What we mean is, in CAP you can extend everything. If you ever heard about CAP plugins or maybe built some, then you have seen it. The CAP plugin technique is very successful because it's so simple. You just add a plugin and then you can plug into everywhere. You can extend the database services by adding a handler, these kind of things. And agnostic design, which is also the reason why we are able to work locally. CAP runs everywhere, in Joule Studio or outside, on my machine, on your machine, in BDP, everywhere. And the reason is agnostic design. By the way, agnostic design, the timeless principle behind this, is also called in the past, at least for older guys, minimal assumption. If you need a database or if you need authentication, don't hard code that you use XSUAA for that, because tomorrow it might be replaced by IAS in BDP. So don't hard code about unnecessary assumptions. The only assumption you need for authentication is you have something like a tenant ID, which is an opaque string. Don't make assumptions what's in the string. And the user ID, which is an opaque string. Don't make an assumption what's in it. It's just supposed to be unique. Latest best practices served out of the box. These are things that we delivered and already announced last reCAP and delivered in the meantime in GA quality. And I want to highlight these three here, but need to check on the time. Event queues. You have heard about event queues already, right? Have you heard about Outbox? Show of hands. And did you use Outbox and event queues? Okay, this is why I added it here, because I think it's very much underestimated. If you ask me, and again, this is an AFC best practice, a proven best practice, if you want to build scalable application, with or without AI, doesn't matter. Go for asynchronous design and event queues. And it's a message passing system instead of a rendezvous you always call and the other one needs to pick up the phone if he's there. If he's not, your system stops. So asynchronous and message passing system solve this, and event queues are the technique for that. Think about in CAP terms, you connect to some service. Could be a local service, could be a remote service. You don't make assumption, agnostic, and then send a message to it. And the event queues just allow you to say, okay, I don't send the message to that system directly, but I want a variant of that system, a client, just a client proxy, basically, UD, like queued, and this should be the outboxed service, or the queued service, you can also write, and then you can do the same message send. It looks exactly as before, but now the message is not sent directly in the rendezvous principle, but first just registered somewhere in a queue, and then when the server has time and capacity, it will be processed and forwarded to the client. So again, this other service could be local or remote. CAP doesn't make assumptions, and you don't as well, which allows us to use it in very different ways, which is depicted on that slide. Whenever an event comes in, for example, from a Kafka inbound ingress channel, we can put in an inbox. So the protocol adapter for Kafka, the CAP protocol adapter, has a generic support for that. And instead of directly calling the service subscribed methods, event handlers, it would put a task, a note to itself, hey, do that as soon as possible, but not necessarily now. And this is what we could call the effect is, sorry, it's flattening the curve. If you have peak loads, and believe me, you always have peak loads when you have Kafka in front, then your server gets overloaded and it cannot acknowledge the receipt of the tasks anymore, and then you get duplicates because Kafka would retry it. We have seen this in real project by SAP in customers' productions. So flattening the curve is a good idea, which means you just plan to work on the inbound messages, but not now. It's anyways an asynchronous message because it was coming from Kafka. So no need to process it in the current event loop. And on the outbound side of the service, it's called the outbox. Sorry. No, it's still the wrong. But in addition, and this you see in the session by Sebastian van Zückel, so watch out for event queues in the session catalog. You see that you can even send a message to yourself, this queued, which means, hey, I know I need to do something into reaction of where I am, but I know that I might be overloaded, so I just make sure it will be processed, and by making sure, it will be stored, it is guaranteed it will be processed, and it could be processed not on the current overloaded cluster node, but on another cluster node. So scalability and utilization is also an effect of using event queues. And the final thing is you can even schedule things to happen in the background automatically every 1 hour or so, classical garbage collector jobs, and this you can do as well. And here you get the guarantee of exactly once. So if you do that in a cluster, then your problem is usually how do you avoid the same background job running in each cluster node? Well, the answer is event queues. Yeah, HCQL protocol, very similar. You connect to something, you send it a message, and I would show it just here in super tiny demo, making it bigger and full screen, and not that one. Yeah, good. Thanks. I always forget this. Yeah, so let's start. Our bookshop here. Usually we CDS watch, and it starts a server, and we can see the UI. As a very quick thing, you might know REPL, so we can do the same. I start not with watch, but with a REPL, also the bookshop. It's still the bookshop running in the REPL, and I have a prompt simply in my server, which I can use as if I'm in the debugger. So it's still the same one. an arbitrary port. Here's the UI. Here's the UI. No. It is. Yeah. Here would be the UI, but we don't care. What we can do here is, you see, we have the catalog service or the admin service. Let's go for the admin service. So we can connect the admin service, and this is a local connect. It will give you access to the service provider, and then, as you know, we can do things like a admin service. Oops. Code completion. Wiki today. Read books. And it read it. Also with we only want the ID and title. By the way, this tag template string will become the standard. Like that. Because they allow us to do a prepared statement. Yeah. Okay, so far the good. This was a local call. I called the admin service locally. Now I start the bookshop again, and on the other side I start a REPL without loading an application, the bookshop in it. It's actually not connected to this bookshop. It's even on a different path, my home directory here, instead of CAP samples here. What I can do is I can do something like this. That is the magic thing. Service bindings means somebody needs to tell you how to connect to a remote service if you want to connect to a remote service. And service bindings come from a so-called binding environment. On my machine, my binding environment is my machine. So we just, whenever we start an application, we register all services in a secret file that is called this CDS services JSON, and that's just the content of that. Means whenever I do something, as I just did on the other side here, oops, here we are, I connect to the admin service, and now I get back still a CAP service, but in that case not the actual admin service, but a proxy to it, a remote service. And now I can do the very same again as I did here. And not, yeah, again, sorry. You should have told me. Exactly. Yeah, so it works. Sorry for doing that again, this thing. The reason is, I want to stress it again and again. It is this Kalesi principle, it is an axiom, it is this statement of as if it were local, and this is a general, very important statement whenever you deal with CAP. You use something that is meant to run remote as if it were local, always, with minimal assumptions. You don't care how we did the magic to send requests to the other side. Which protocol did we use, by the way? Did you see it? It was HTQL, exactly. Why was it HTQL? Well, let's see that here. I don't save, sorry. In the bookshop, we have our admin service, and it's not AI, but still not deterministic, right? So the CAT service, you see, we serve with OData, HCQL, and REST, and the admin service with HCQL and REST and OData. So CAP serves different protocol, as you know, and when I say connect to the other service and the other service is served at different protocols, we always choose the best one, and HCQL is the best one. Very simple. The reason you find in CapHire there is a comparison of for data CQL, SQL, and GraphQL. HCQL is the most, CQL is the most powerful, and HCQL is nothing than CQL over HTTP. You don't have to believe me, but trust me, it's true. I don't like believers, by the way. Yeah, going on here. And again, as usual, these axiomatic things, these timeless things, as if it were local, give birth to other benefits, like the late-cut microservices, when we have this opportunity to first run something in a monolith, as I did with CDS Rebel and Bookshop loaded in there, and then later on just tear apart the client from the server. It allows us to do late-cut microservices. And this is the other thing. Don't do microservice mania. Hopefully everybody has read the papers on microservice mania meanwhile. It was just a big mistake to overstretch microservices. They are great stuff if you do it in the wise way. And the other things that we see is when we go to top-level data federation. So who has read the data federation guides in CapHire? 1, 2. That's interesting because, and this is really interesting, very interesting, and especially utterly demotivating, I could say, for me, but I'm still smiling. So Ole said it, CapHire is very important, right? But only if you read the fucking manual. And if you don't, you miss a lot, like these things that I just talk about here. And this data federation, what it does is, and I show it here in this X-Travel example. By the way, who looked at the CapHire samples in the CapHire samples organization? Cool. And who doesn't even know what I'm talking about? Good move. Yeah. Look at the samples. They are there for a reason. We spend a lot of time in doing it the right way. And by the way, this was all what Ole referred to when I did my first vibe coding session 6 months ago with Claude, Sonnet, plain, no skills, no MCP service by SAP. It did a great job. It knew CAP. And I asked Claude, hey, where do you know CAP from? And it answered from public samples and public documentation. As simple as that. Means that's why I'm not that disappointed that nobody reads the fucking manual anymore, because at least Claude does, which is cool. And we'll come back to that. Yeah, we have here the X-Travel application. Yeah, you're right. 1 second. Just need to find the right one. Never mind. Okay. The PowerPoint. And I will speed up then later on, I promise. Yeah. We have the X-Travels application, the X-Flights application. I do it very quickly. Visit the session by Stefan Weinstock, who goes into details on that. And data federation is a fucking important thing in business applications, if you ask me. So assumed you have 2 microservices, the X-Flights providing access to flights master data, airports, airlines, flights, and flight connections. And you describe an admin service for a Fiori client like that, and you have a different service for master data consumers. The travel application would be a master data consumer, a different microservice. And that thing, there was this one guy, I don't remember the name, in the last product day who shared his experiences as a customer with CAP, and one of the greatest thing, a lot of great things, he said, he's here. Can you show your hand if you're here and you don't know what I mean, whom I mean? Yeah, exactly. So remember that face. He said, hey, when you do services, keep your consumers in mind. tailor them for their use cases. Don't just give them services like that, which are what I call the database Andy pattern. It's one service for all use cases. Bad. This is a service especially for master data consumers. And what we do is we mark it with, it should be consumable via HSQL, REST, GraphQL, MCP. And Stefan will show there's also something like a data product annotation, which is a pseudo protocol. And what we can do is we import that on the other side by just doing an npm install and then refer to the imported definition by what we call a consumption views. Remember the name and the concept consumption view, very important. The view on the server, on the provider side, express what your consumers are supposed to see, and you as a consumer express in a consumption view what you actually want to consume by that, from that, which is usually a subset. What we see here is really only a subset of the fields. You can read it later on. And by that, you give us information, declarative information, what you want, your intent. There's a lot of talk about intent-based development. Share intent. It's a good idea. And then we can optimize the replication, because we would only replicate what you really need here, not all the other things. And this is why consumption view are that important. Brings us, and I need to speed up to that. By doing that, that's all you as a developer need to know and need to tell us. And you do go for minimal assumptions. And then we can do something like that. I start the X-Flights service here. And I start the travel application here. And you see it detected the flight service running next left-hand side from my local binding environment automatically, connected to it, and replicated data. And it would repeat that every 10 minutes in that sample demo. And what you see here is again what protocol? HCQL, of course, because HCQL is the most powerful. Yeah, so that's it. I will now a bit fast forward, going to the AI topics. We are already at the X-Travel thing, and what we see in the X-Travel thing is, hopefully the application comes up now. This is this X-Travel. It's the S-Flight from ABAP, and we can do new travels, we can do new bookings, and we are experts in Fiori development. We are the best experts, not at all, right? What I personally always struggled with is such a display UI. It's manageable, I get it, right? But the time I need to spend to have an AI to enter and fill in and create new travels, selecting the right flights, selecting a hotel and other things, well, I just never do it because I always fail. Yeah. So what we thought, yeah, exactly. Doesn't even work. So I really always fail. And the idea was, let's do an extension to this X-Flight application. As we see here, not only travels and flights service, but also another service for managing events, leisure or business events like Taget and stuff, and hotels. And now we want to, instead of building that UI again by very skilled developers, so I would ask Volker, you know Fiori, right? But too high paid. I just get a cheap Claude guy and ask it whether they could help. Now, and what do we need to do so? We have here the X-Travels application, and I have a branch which we share. It's public, by the way, you can try it your own. I have here, like the events application, it's just a simple serving event service thing with a simple implementation, and yeah, that's it. Same for hotels, And I chose to do the late-cut microservice approach. I just embedded them in the Xtravel instead of handling another life cycle of another application. So it's just an Xtravel, which means what you already saw here is really true. We saw it here, beginning. Oh, let's do it again so we see it better, and do it here as well so we see it better. That one serves the flight service, and that one serves the event, the hotel service, and the travel service, and travel agent service, something new. Yeah. What we need to do, given we have an existing CAP service like the flight service we saw before, we just add this annotation and express our intent, hey, serve it also as an MCP endpoint. And the same we do with the Xtravel application service itself, which is here. Just say, not the service, but first of all the event service. Just say it should be an MCP service. And the same with the hotel service, and the same we did for a new one, which is called the travel agent service, meant to serve agents. That is here. And again, it's a use case oriented interface. It basically serves a subset of the travel service, but for a different use case. So I did a different service. It's also an MCP server. And this is what we saw here. These services are served via our data, REST, HCQL in that case, and MCP. That one is served only via MCP, that one via MCP, and like that. We just do that in a different organization of my shell here. PDS watch Xtravels again. So we have the Xflight on top, the Xtravels below. That one serves one service, that one serves 5 services, 3 of them being MCP servers. And we see them here. The event service from here, the hotel service from here, the flight service from here, etc. And now let's try something like this. And it's always a surprise what it does. Sometimes it does just crazy things, right? So what does it do now? I call it travel agent service. Yeah. No, it has an event service in, because sometimes it just looks for Sapphire as a hotel name. Because we didn't give them any guidance, right? Just the MCP raw information. Okay, so seems it found Sapphire in the events service. It figured out it's in Orlando. It tries to find flights to Orlando and the conference path and a hotel, 2 hotels. Which flights? Yeah, I forgot. I'm flying from Frankfurt. By the way, do you always add please at the end? It's a slave, isn't it? Yeah, and I only go for premium hotels, of course. Okay, so Sapphire, hotel, flights. Yeah, sometimes it doesn't give me a flight back, so I have to ask it for a flight back and then I get it. So looks good. Yep. Book it. And it works, hopefully. Sometimes it also fails, because that is also something remarkable here. So remarkable is it just works. MCP adapters is all we need, and only this annotation, right? Another remarkable thing is, without any additional information, the generic agent in Claude worked. And why is that? Well, It's a fucking common domain. Everybody knows about hotels, events, flights, and stuff like that. So we don't need to teach it about this domain, right? And it's a quite simple one with 5 MCP servers only. Yeah. But still, you see things like that. In that case, yeah, here. It's the trial error syndrome, right? It just tries to send a request, gets an error response, tries another variant, gets an error response, tries a third time, sometimes 30 times, 300 times. That is a major problem. And by the way, this is also the problem that our bosses in SAP put in this API policy. It's not a fun thing, for sure not, but obviously necessary. We are bombarded in S4 systems by crazy AI things. That is really true. Yeah. Okay, so should have worked. We can also check in the UI. Yeah, it's ended, and it has these 2 things. So what did we get? It saved me about 6 months' time that I would have to spend to create the UI that would allow an end user to do what this agent now did for us. It's a nice example of this generative UI thing, I think, and shows how simple it is. Now, doing a bit fast forward. No, let's stay here for 1 more second. Because then I have it in without switching again. Yeah, visit our friends from the Munich team, which I promoted this time. So where are you? Yeah, here. And here, on the topic corner table. So really topic corner meant to go in depth there, which will show you this other variant that Ola already promoted. Instead of MCP, you can say it's an agent, and then it will do the very same, but just in this time, not the Claude agent will not call an MCP tool, but just forward and delegate a natural language request using the A2A protocol. And all the bells and whistles happen behind the scenes. Still, the functionality of that service is what you described with CAP means. But there's another one. You can also just add some funny MD files next to the service definition, and then the agent plugin that the colleagues implemented in the last couple of weeks will detect them and really spool a real agent with a custom agent, basically. So, summarizing what we saw here, and then I think we are pretty close to the closing hour. The MCP protocol adapter, just add the MCP thing in the very same way as you would just add HCQL. It only has 3 tools, and that's a major difference to the prior arts which are out there in the community, as well as inside at SAP. Within SAP, we have seen MCP plugins that for a service, one service with 10 entities, had at least, guess what, 40 tools, which fill up your context window. In our case, a service always has 3 tools only, for that very reason. The query thing, you should never underestimate. Remember, it's one of the CAP axioms. Querying is a really powerful thing. Authors detected that as well, these crazy guys who invented relational databases with SQL, or the GraphQL guys that did also React, Facebook guys. Querying is key when you want efficient data processing. And therefore, what we offer here is this query tool, which makes this available to MCP clients, agents basically. Yeah, and as usual, and that is frequently forgotten, and unfortunately, it seems like after we celebrated that we don't have to deploy all the time to BTP only to fix a comma, then came CAP and said, and now you can do this even within 1 second turnaround time instead of 10 minutes. We are always falling back to, and now you can do it again with 10 minutes, right? And I wonder, why would I? So inner loop development is always what we at CAP do. When we do AI, it always runs locally as well. The Munich guys even implemented, you can call it an LLM mock, because then it runs locally. It doesn't have the full functionality, of course. Okay, cup-level agents, instead of MCP, you just do the same with the agent annotation. And now you have a full-blown LLM-based reasoning within your service. And you as a service provider can decide which LLM will be used and which AI provider will be used, instead of the client, your customers, will burn their tokens always with their providers. Which means you burn their tokens, but maybe cheaper ones, because you wisely chose the right LLM, which is what sub-agents are about. Instead of leaving everything to one big generic agent, have sub-agent dropped out. Just 1 minute more or so. The batteries included, this was Ole mentioned, all these things out of the box by CAP, and additional batteries included for the AI world is conversational context, checkpoint, basic agent memory, audit logging, telemetry. All the things that you usually have to do for an agent are done, because this agent runs embedded in CAP and just benefits from these things being done for everything running in CAP. Yeah, custom agents just with the MD files, and a very last minute on the AI-assisted development. So I shared these university courses. Would have loved to do it here, but I run out of time. What I found is LLMs are trained on CAP. I asked Claude, it said trained on CAP higher. They apply even, so they read the fucking manual, you know, and they even apply our best practices, always. It was like, great. For example, when I asked add input validation and I told him to do the constraint annotation, it just did the constraint annotation in a separate file and told me back, and I do that in a separate file because CAP promotes separation of concerns. Good idea. So means, I think AI is a real boost. It reads, instead of you, the fucking manual, so ensures you know the best practices when you use AI, because you do it anymore. It even applies our best practices. Yes, there are gaps in quality of CAP higher, time gaps. The latest things in CAP higher, they don't yet know. They always have this time gap, and skills are great to close these gaps. But they are mostly, which we find out, a gap filler role. Don't repeat what you anyways have in other documentation. Don't put the whole Stack Overflow in a skills library, right? Because you would disconnect you from Stack Overflows. Yeah, and the other one is, yes, intent-based development is a good idea. And guess what? The first words written in the CAP higher documentation 10 years ago were capture intent. And what I saw when I did this vibe coding, when I said, hey, create me a new application and start with a domain model, and the domain model should contain something for university course management. It just did it in a few seconds. I never wait for more than 1 minute. I hate this. So I did it incrementally, and what it generated was not 1,000 lines of code that all of you always check, right? No, it was 10 lines or 20 lines of CDS content, captured intent, which I was able to validate within a minute. So, and this incremental thing, this is what makes AI usable. And this is the last slide then. So do we really need CAP? Does it replace it? Well, I would say AI boosts everything, good or bad, right? If you combine it with bad stuff, you will get bad stuff. Just multiply and boost it. A lot of bad stuff. And CAP feeds it with best practices. So if we combine it with CAP, and this is actually not by me, a PM approached me that used CAP in the past, occasionally only, and now he tried it with AI and also tried AI without CAP, and he said, well, Daniel, CAP and AI is a perfect match. Thanks for that. And watch the other sessions, please, that I mentioned. And here's another very good one. cool stuff that I personally like a lot. Tools, sometimes tools are cool as well, right?